Central Park had always been Emily's sanctuary. Every afternoon, she would sit on the same worn wooden bench under the shade of towering oak trees. Feeling the gentle breeze on her face and listening to the chirping birds and the distant laughter of children. Though she could not see the world around her, she had learned to navigate it through sound, scent, and touch. But she was never truly alone. Rex, her loyal German shepherd, was always by her side. Rex was more than just a guide dog. He was her protector, her guardian, the unwavering presence that kept her safe. Ever since the accident that had stolen her sight 5 years ago. Her world had been enveloped in darkness. But Rex had been her light, guiding her through every step, shielding her from dangers she could not perceive. However, today, something felt off. Rex was tense. Emily could feel it through the leash wrapped around her fingers. His posture had stiffened, his breathing was controlled but heavy, and his muscles coiled like a spring waiting to snap. His ears twitched at every passing sound. But his attention was locked onto something, or someone. Across the park, Onana leaned against his large motorcycle. His bulky arms crossed over his chest. A smirk played on his lips as he watched Emily. A blind girl sitting so peacefully, unaware of how vulnerable she looked. His friends chuckled beside him, exchanging amused glances. But Onana wasn't laughing. He flicked his cigarette to the pavement, grinding it under his boot before pushing himself off the bike. Sliding his hands into his pockets, he started walking directly toward Emily. With every step Onana took, Rex's protective instincts ignited. The German shepherd lowered his stance, shifting in front of Emily. His deep, rumbling growl cut through the air like a warning. His sharp eyes locked onto the approaching threat. Emily couldn't see what was happening, but she felt it. The leash tightened as Rex's body tensed. The dog never reacted like this unless something was wrong. She turned her head toward the sound of heavy footsteps, her pulse quickening. "Rex," she whispered, her fingers trembling against his fur. The dog's growl grew louder. Something was coming, and whoever it was, they weren't a friend. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as the approaching footsteps grew louder. The air around her felt heavier, the once peaceful atmosphere of the park now charged with an unsettling tension. She tightened her grip on Rex's leash, sensing the dog's rigid stance. Something wasn't right. Then, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Nice dog you've got there," Onana said, his tone laced with mockery. "Does he do tricks? Maybe he can roll over for me?" Emily's stomach churned. She didn't need to see his face to know what kind of man he was. His voice carried the smug arrogance of someone who enjoyed picking apart the weak. "Leave us alone," she said, forcing her voice to remain firm despite the growing fear curling inside her. But Onana didn't listen. Instead, he clapped his hands loudly, as if testing Rex's reaction. The German shepherd didn't flinch. His growl deepened, a low, warning rumble vibrating through Emily's fingertips. A few passers-by slowed their steps, watching the scene unfold, but no one stepped forward. No one intervened. Onana laughed. "Relax, princess. I'm just having a little fun." But then, he moved. Emily couldn't see it, but she felt it in Rex's explosive reaction. The dog lunged forward, stopping just short of sinking his teeth into Onana's leg. His deep, guttural bark echoed through the park, sending a chill down everyone's spine. The laughter in Onana's voice vanished. "The hell's wrong with this mutt?" he muttered, stumbling backward. Emily could barely breathe. She crouched beside Rex, one hand gripping his fur, trying to steady herself. "He's warning you," she said through clenched teeth. "Walk away, now." For a long, agonizing moment, the world seemed frozen. Rex stood unmoving, his sharp eyes locked on Onana, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. Then, the sound of footsteps. Someone was coming. Onana hesitated, glancing over his shoulder at the approaching figure. His bravado cracked, if only slightly. He sneered, spitting on the ground. "Whatever, not worth it," he muttered, turning on his heel. Emily remained still, listening to the fading sound of boots crunching on pavement. Only when Rex finally relaxed did she allow herself to breathe. But as she reached for him, she realized his body was still trembling. The danger wasn't over. Not yet. The air inside Emily's small apartment felt suffocatingly still. Too still. Rex sat near the front door, ears pricked, body tense. He was listening. Emily had long since learned to trust his instincts if Rex was on edge. Something was wrong. Then, a noise. A faint scraping sound against the window pane. Emily's breath hitched. She gripped the armrest of her couch, her fingers trembling slightly. It could be the wind, she told herself. Just the wind. But Rex's deep, warning growl told her otherwise. Her pulse quickened. She reached for her phone, her fingers fumbling to unlock it. The seconds dragged like hours as she pressed the emergency number. Her breath shallow. Then, a sharp knock at the door. She froze. The knock came again, louder this time, deliberate, uninvited. Rex rose to his feet, his body coiled, ready to attack if necessary. Then, a voice. "Emily, it's me." Her stomach dropped. "Onana." Her grip on the phone tightened as she fought against the rising wave of panic. How had he found her? "Open up." Onana's voice was deceptively casual, but there was something menacing beneath it. "I just want to talk." "No." Emily's voice wavered as she responded, but she forced it out anyway. "Leave, now." Silence. Then, the doorknob rattled. He was trying to get in. Rex's snarl ripped through the air, a sound so raw and full of promise that it sent a chill down her spine. Onana cursed. "Damn dog." The rattling stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of Emily's own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Then, the footsteps. Not retreating, circling. Emily clutched the phone tighter, her voice barely above a whisper. "Rex." The dog's response was immediate. He moved to the window. His body stiffened, and his growl deepened into something almost primal. Outside, a shadow loomed. Emily's blood ran cold. He wasn't leaving. He was waiting. The police sirens had long since faded. But Emily knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Rex sat rigid by the door, his sharp eyes locked on the window. His muscles remained coiled, as if anticipating the next move. He wasn't fooled. Neither was Emily. She paced the small apartment, her heart still hammering from the night's encounter. Onana had left, for now. But the way he had stood in the shadows, circling like a predator, sent a shiver down her spine. A part of her wanted to believe it was over, that the police had scared him away. But deep down, she knew men like him didn't scare easily. A creak. Emily froze. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. It came from the fire escape. Rex's growl was instant, low, threatening, like a storm ready to break. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "He's back." She reached for her phone, her fingers shaking as she tried to dial. But then, a metallic clink. The window latch. A surge of cold terror flooded through her veins. Rex launched forward, barking wildly, his powerful body slamming against the door. Emily stumbled back, panic overtaking logic. Then, the window slid open. A shadow moved. Emily didn't think, she ran. She bolted toward the kitchen, grabbing the first thing her hands could find, a heavy metal pan. Useless. But something. Rex was already at the window, snarling. His growl was so deep, so violent, it sent a clear message. "Come inside, and you won't walk out." For a moment, there was nothing, just the charged silence, the standoff. Then, the shadow disappeared. A retreat. Emily stood frozen, Rex still guarding the open window, his chest rising and falling in rapid bursts. It was over. For now. But as she reached for the window to slam it shut, she saw it. A single boot print on the sill. A warning. Her nightmare was far from finished. The next morning, Emily barely touched her coffee. Sleep had eluded her. Every creak in the apartment, every distant rumble of a motorcycle, had sent her pulse into overdrive. She knew Onana wasn't done. Rex sat by the door, his ears perked, his body still tense from the night before. He hadn't relaxed, not once. That told Emily all she needed to know. They were still in danger. Her phone vibrated on the table. A blocked number. Her stomach twisted. She let it ring, dread curling in her chest. Then a voicemail notification appeared. With a shaking hand, she pressed play. The voice that followed sent ice through her veins. "You think this is over? It's just getting started." Emily's breath hitched. She clutched the phone tighter, her knuckles turning white. The message wasn't long, but it was enough. Enough to make her heart pound. Rex growled as if he understood, as if he could sense the malice laced in every syllable. Her hands trembled as she hit redial. But the number was disconnected. Of course, it was. Panic clawed at her throat. She needed to think, to act. Then, a sudden knock at the door. Rex sprang to his feet, barking ferociously. Emily jumped, her body going rigid. No one had called ahead. No one was supposed to be here. She crept toward the peephole, her breath shallow. A uniformed officer stood outside. Relief washed over her. She yanked the door open and froze. The officer's badge was fake. The insignia slightly off. The stance too casual. Wrong. The moment their eyes met, he grinned. Emily slammed the door, but the man shoved forward, wedging his boot in the frame. Not so fast, sweetheart, he sneered. Rex lunged. The man barely had time to react before the German Shepherd clamped down on his forearm. Teeth sinking deep, a scream tore from the intruder's throat. Emily didn't wait. She grabbed the nearest lamp and swung. The impact sent the man staggering backward, cursing. Blood dripped from his sleeve. His face twisted in pain. Then, footsteps. More of them. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. This wasn't just a warning. They were coming for her. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears as Rex growled, his body tense and ready to strike again. The man at the door stumbled back, clutching his bleeding arm, but he wasn't alone. More footsteps thudded against the pavement outside. They were coming. Emily's mind raced. There was no way out through the front. The apartment was small, only a few rooms, one exit blocked by intruders who wanted her silenced. Rex whined, his instincts screaming at him to protect her. She needed a plan. Fast. A loud bang shook the door as someone kicked it. The wood splintered. No time left. Emily grabbed her phone, fumbling with the screen as she sprinted toward the back of the apartment. 911. Ring. Come on, she hissed, her voice shaking. The dispatcher finally answered, but before Emily could speak, crash. The front door slammed open, and heavy boots stormed inside. Rex snarled, his fur bristling as Emily yanked open the window in her bedroom. It was a 2-story drop. A shadow fell over the doorway. There's nowhere to run, sweetheart, a voice drawled. It was Onana. Emily's breath hitched. She glanced at Rex. The dog looked at her. Then the window. As if he understood. She had no choice. With one last deep breath, she jumped. The wind rushed past her, the world tilting as she hit the ground hard. Pain shot up her leg. But there was no time to dwell on it. Rex landed beside her, unharmed. Above them, Onana leaned out the window, cursing. Find her. Emily staggered to her feet, gripping Rex's leash. Then, headlights. A black car lurched onto the curb, tires screeching. The driver's door swung open. Emily's heart stopped. A woman stepped out, eyes locked onto her. Sergeant Evelyn. Get in, she ordered. Emily hesitated only for a second. Then, with Onana's men spilling into the alley behind her, she grabbed Rex and dived into the car. The tires squealed as they sped off into the night. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps as she pressed herself against the cold leather seat of the speeding car. The glow of streetlights flashed through the window, illuminating Sergeant Evelyn's face. Her jaw was tight, her hands gripping the wheel like a vice. Behind them, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. They're following, Evelyn muttered, her voice low but edged with tension. Emily whipped her head around. A black SUV was gaining on them, weaving between traffic, its engine roaring like a predator locked on its prey. Rex growled, sensing the danger. They're not letting us go, Emily whispered, panic coiling in her chest. Evelyn gritted her teeth. Then we make them. The car swerved violently. Emily grabbed the dashboard, her heart hammering as Evelyn made a sharp turn down a narrow alleyway. Trash cans clattered and toppled behind them as the SUV tried to follow. But the passage was too tight. They'll find another way around, Evelyn warned. As if on cue, another vehicle appeared ahead, skidding to a stop, blocking the exit. Emily's stomach dropped. Trapped. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She slammed the brakes, spun the wheel, and threw the car into reverse. The SUV behind them came roaring out of the alley, headlights blinding. They're boxing us in, Emily gasped. Evelyn's gaze flicked between the two approaching vehicles. Calculating, the black SUV behind them sped up, ready to ram them from behind. Hold on, Evelyn shouted. She jerked the wheel hard to the right. The car jumped the curb, tearing through a metal fence. Tires screeched as they crashed onto an abandoned lot, dust and gravel flying into the air. The SUV behind them wasn't as lucky. It skidded, lost control, and slammed into a parked truck with a sickening crunch of metal. Emily gasped, chest heaving. The other vehicle, Onana's men, had already turned around to pursue them. Evelyn gunned the engine. "We're not safe yet," she said. "We need to disappear." Emily held onto Rex, her heart still racing. She wasn't sure if escape was even possible anymore. But she knew one thing: Onana wouldn't stop hunting them. The motel room was silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the files Evelyn had recovered. Names, locations, secret transactions, proof that Onana's reach extended farther than they had imagined. Rex lay near the door, his ears twitching at the faintest sound. "This is bigger than we thought," Evelyn muttered, standing by the window, peering through the curtains. "We can't trust anyone." Emily swallowed. She had felt trapped before. But this was different. This wasn't just fear, this was survival. Then Rex's low growl shattered the quiet. Emily's breath hitched. Rex stood abruptly, his body tense, his gaze locked on the door. A soft creak sounded from the hallway. Footsteps. Someone was outside. Evelyn's eyes snapped to Emily, one hand reaching for her gun. "We have to go, now." But before they could move, the doorknob twisted. Emily froze, her pulse hammering against her ribs. The lock clicked. Rex snarled, lunging toward the door just as it burst open. A masked figure stepped in, raising a weapon. Evelyn fired first. The gunshot roared through the tiny room, deafening. The intruder stumbled, crashing against the wall, but more shadows loomed in the hallway. Emily grabbed the files, her hands shaking. "They found us," she cried. Evelyn grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the back window. The door was compromised. Rex lunged at another intruder, teeth clamping onto an arm, dragging the man down with a scream. "Go," Evelyn barked. Emily threw the window open, the night air cold against her skin. Another gunshot ripped through the air, missing her by inches. She scrambled through, landing hard on the pavement outside. Rex leapt after her, his fur bristling. Evelyn fired one last shot, then vaulted through the window behind them. "Run," she hissed. They bolted into the night, shadows chasing them. Emily's chest burned with fear and exhaustion. But the only thought pounding in her mind was how much time they had left before Onana's men found them again.